In this episode of B.Hooked Knitting, we're going to knit the long tail cast on. My name is Brittany and I'll be your guide throughout this tutorial. For recommended supplies, please visit knitting.bhookedcrochet.com/longtail. You can get that link in the description below. The long tail cast on is the foundation for many of your knitting projects. There are other cast on methods, but this is the first one that you should learn as a beginner. It's the most universal, it's the most simple, and it's really one of those great techniques that you have to have in your knitting tool bag. Let's begin. For the long tail cast on, we're only going to need one of our needles for now, so we can place that aside. As the name implies, you need a long tail to start the long tail cast on, and that's because you're going to be using some of the yarn from the tail as well as the yarn from the ball of yarn. So the skein that you have attached, you're going to be pulling from both to cast on your stitches. There are a couple of different ways of starting this. I prefer to use the easier of the two methods in my opinion, and it has a slightly neater appearance. Now you can start off by creating a slip knot and then placing the loop on your needle, but that really isn't necessary. All you need to do is drape the yarn over your needle. Before we do that though, we really need to estimate how much yarn we're going to need in our tail in order to cast on the stitches that we need. There's a couple of different ways of doing that. One way is to just simply wrap the yarn around your needle, the number of stitches that you're supposed to cast on. And this is a pretty general estimate that you're going to get from this. And what I typically do if I use this method, I'll wrap the number of times that I have stitches to cast on. So for example, if we are casting on 6 stitches and I have 6 wraps here, this is approximately how much yarn I should need. But what I've found is it's not super accurate. So if I'm using this method, I'm going to double it. So we'll need this much for 6 stitches. Well, I would just double it and then start at say about right here. The other method is going to use a little bit more yarn until you're used to guesstimating, but what I typically will do is just grab the tail and then just run it all the way down to my elbow, just holding on to it and sliding it through. And depending on the number of stitches I'm going to cast on, that's how many times I'm going to run the yarn back to my elbow, just to guesstimate. So you can do whatever is comfortable of those two methods, as long as you do something. Just know the long tail cast on, you have to have a long tail. Once you have an estimate of your tail and you're ready to cast on your stitches, you're just going to drape the yarn over one of your needles. So the ball of yarn is on this end, the tail of course is over there. The easiest way to begin if you have never done this cast on method before is just place your index finger and your thumb together, just like that, and then put them in between the two strands, so the front and the back that's hanging there, and then take your free fingers in the back and just grab the two strands from the bottom just to secure it. Now since we're not using a slip knot, we will want to secure this with our other finger here, so I just rest my finger right there. And then what you want to do is just open your index finger and your thumb. Now you don't have to open them too far, but just get you some tension so you can see almost like a triangular shape. Now at first it's going to seem a little bit confusing, but I promise this motion will get much easier. You're going to take the tip of your needle and bring it down towards you, and you're going to catch this strand right here. So what's underneath your thumb from the bottom. So you'll just go from below, just run the tip right up along your thumb and hold on to that. You don't want to drop that loop just yet. Then we're going to take the tip of the needle and bring it around and behind the loop that's on our index finger. Now we're ready to take this strand from our thumb, and we're just going to put the tip of the needle in between. So again, just run it down the middle of your finger, and then you can drop it. And then you'll just simply pull up on your needle and kind of pull down on your strands in your hand there to tighten up the stitches. Now this would be a total of 2 stitches on our needle, and this first one is from where we started, how we had it just draped over the needle. If you had a slip knot, then it would look exactly the same. You would just have the slip knot coming from this end right here. Let's have a look at that method one more time. So take the tip of your needle, come down and under the strand on your thumb, and then go back and around your index finger, and then release the loop on your thumb just over the tip, and then tighten things up. So down, around through the back, around your index finger, and through the loop on your thumb. I just like to say this in my head. We go down, around, and through. You can just sort of chant that in your head until you get the hang of this cast on. So down, around, and through. Down, around, and through. Now a couple of tips here. As you're tightening your stitches, you want to be mindful of 2 things. The first thing you want to be sure is that you are keeping your tension pretty uniform. So however tight you're making each one of your stitches, just make sure that they're all relatively the same. The other thing you want to keep in mind is that you are making sure that you're not making your stitches too tight. So if you have your stitches too tight, when you go to work your first row, where we're going to be using our other needle, if they're too tight, then it's going to be really tough to get your needle through them. So you want to find that happy medium in between too tight and not tight enough. And this will come with practice. So you would just continue this motion until you have the proper number of loops on your needle as directed by your pattern. So that's going to be your cast on number. It'll say cast on 10 or cast on 20, and you're just going to count the loops until the number of loops matches the number of cast on stitches in your pattern. Now I do want to point out one more thing that you can probably notice right here at the bottom. When you're using the long tail cast on, you will notice that your yarn is going to tend to curl on itself. And that's because as we're going through these motions, we're just putting extra twists in them. So what I like to do is just a little bit of housekeeping as I work, every 10 stitches or so, is just kind of give it a little pull and just allow it to kind of release some of that extra twist that it's getting. And it just makes it a little bit more manageable. So then I can just jump right into working a few more stitches. And that's really all there is to the long tail cast on.